Discover the touching truth. My daughter's shocking text revealed a hidden family divide. Jim wiped the sweat from his brow as he made the final adjustments to the old pickup truck, the fading light of evening stretching the shadows in the garage. He tuned out the world around him, focusing instead on the rhythm of his work, a sanctuary from the whirlwind that had become his life since losing his wife 3 years ago. The hum of machinery was a comforting sound he relied on. Just as he tightened the last bolt, his phone buzzed, jolting him. It was Lily, his heart racing with anticipation. He opened the video message, her face radiating with the kind of joy that felt foreign after so much pain. "Dad, I got into the university. A full scholarship," she shrieked, her pearly whites flashing in the glow of the screen. But just as quickly as his heart leaped, it sank. She mentioned her uncle, that entitled man whose very name felt like poison in his mouth. He had helped Lily secure this opportunity, and with each word she uttered, Jim's pride twisted into a complex knot of resentment and confusion. Days crawled forward as he battled with this maelstrom of emotions. Was it wrong to feel betrayed? He had slaved away in the garage, often missing out on family dinners to ensure Lily would have a good life, not just a functional one. Each time he tried to talk to her about her future, their discussions stumbled onto her uncle, creating a rift that felt insurmountable. Every mention of that man reminded him of the disdainful echo of their last encounter, the way he'd scoffed at Jim's lifestyle, his blue-collar existence seen as an affront to the family legacy. What was left unsaid lingered heavily on Jim's mind. The man had everything, flaunting wealth while Jim struggled to provide for the daughter he'd vowed to protect. He felt the pressure of Lily's bright future threatening to swallow them both, drawing a line in the sand neither of them wanted to cross. He couldn't help but wonder if sacrifices had been made by his late wife, repressed secrets simmering beneath the surface of their simple life. As he prepared for a difficult dinner discussion, sifting through family photos that pulled at his heartstrings, he stumbled upon a letter tucked away in a forgotten box. His breath caught when he realized it hinted at a connection between his wife and her brother, a legacy entwined in wealth that he never understood. Would that explain the tension between him and her brother? Did Lily even know the full story? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The heaviness intensified, the knot in his stomach tightening. Jim sat down with Lily, the air heavy with uncertainty. "I just wanted to make you proud, Dad," she said, looking at him with vulnerability that made his heart ache. No longer just father and daughter, they were instead two strangers thawing on the edge of reality. Truths now emerging in stark relief. As voices rose, words spilling out sharper than knives, he knew they were teetering on the precipice of something fragile. Just when they began to find a tangled thread of understanding, a message chirped on Jim's phone, an invitation from Lily's uncle. A proposition that could alter their lives forever. That question loomed larger than before. Would he take the path of acceptance, cowing to the man who looked down on him? Or would he stand firm for the dignity they had fought so hard to uphold? The tension thickened, every moment a precarious standstill threatening to unravel everything. Jim lay awake long after the confrontation with Lily had faded into silence. The weight of their words clung to him like the oppressive humidity of summer evenings, causing rest to elude him. As the clock ticked past midnight, he felt his resolve waver, shifting from anger to contemplation. Why had they been so disconnected? He replayed the conversation in his mind, dissecting every look, tone, and hesitation, trying to find an anchor amidst the turbulence. In the dim light of his living room, Jim reached for the letter he had discovered earlier. The creased paper felt foreign in his hands, as if it contained a piece of a life that had slipped away. As he read it again, words began to blur, enmeshed in the complexity of the legacy his wife had carried. The beauty of the past juxtaposed with their raw present sparked an ember of curiosity within him. What secrets had his wife hidden? What truths might offer clarity to the rift that had driven him and Lily apart? The next day, with the sun cutting through the fog of his doubt, Jim made a resolution. He needed to speak with Lily, to bridge the divide that had grown between them not just because of her uncle, but by the silences surrounding their shared grief and unspoken truths. As he watched her prepare for college that morning, her excitement palpable, yet intertwined with apprehension, he saw not just his daughter but a reflection of himself. A person tangled in the pursuit of acceptance from external forces. "Dad, are you okay?" Lily's voice broke through his thoughts, laced with concern. Her eyes searched his, looking for something she might have lost in their last exchange. Jim took a deep breath, feeling his heart thud louder than before. "Actually, I want to talk about the letter I found," Jim started, noticing how her expression shifted from curiosity to confusion. "It was from your mother, addressed to me, but it hints at family matters I didn't know about. I think we owe it to ourselves to uncover who she really was, and maybe it'll help us understand why things have felt so fragmented." Lily hesitated. "Maybe. But what if it just complicates everything more?" "Sometimes, understanding is the only way to move forward," he replied, quiet determination coloring his voice. "We can't keep dancing around these issues, especially not when you're on the brink of a new life. I want to be part of that journey authentically, for both of us." His admission hung thickly between them. Inner conflict flashed across her face, but Jim could see the flicker of willingness to confront the past bloom alongside it. "Okay, let us do this together," she finally said, her tone resolute. An unspoken bond began to thread through their conversation, a fragile hope mingling with the air filled with apprehension. As days became avenues of exploration, Jim began to realize there was more at stake than just family secrets. There was a profound chance for both him and Lily to redefine their relationship, a chance for each to reclaim aspects of themselves buried beneath collective grief and confusion. They amassed a makeshift family archive, uncovering photographs, notes, and bits of family lore that should have woven them closer instead of pushing them apart. Yet the specter of her uncle loomed in the background, intensifying the tension. Letters stirred ancient rivalries, but they also unveiled shared glories, strengths Jim had never recognized within himself. One evening, while discussing a photograph of Lily's mother at her graduation, Jim felt that flicker of hope blazing brighter. "You remind me of her, you both have this light," he said, taking a moment to feel the connection grow. "It's not just about what she left behind. It's about what you're creating for yourself." With every revelation came a deeper understanding of their struggles and victories, and Jim began to appreciate how intertwined their journeys had been. Yet, the deeper their bond grew, the more he sensed an approaching storm. The uncle's invitation loomed, an opportunity crafted to sever their newly woven ties if not approached with caution. The day would arrive soon when they would have to decide. Would they walk into the lion's den, risking everything for the sake of ambition and the allure of power? Or would they stand firm, honoring the bond they were forging despite the shadows of legacy trailing behind them? As the sun dipped low, casting a golden hue on their cluttered living room floor, Jim felt a surge of clarity. There was a narrative unfolding, one that would define not just their past, but their future. The moment had finally come to face the game that her uncle was playing and fail or succeed. Jim was determined not to step back. The stakes were too high, and so was the promise of a better tomorrow. With resolve strengthening in his chest, he turned to Lily. Determination swelled within him. "Tomorrow we confront him." The morning dawned like a tight drum, echoing with the sound of Jim's pounding heartbeat. He stood at the kitchen counter, staring at the remnants of breakfast while rehearsing the words he wanted to voice. The air felt dense, filled with unspoken expectations, as Lily moved purposefully around him, packing her bag while glancing at her watch, the final minutes ticking away like precious grains of sand. "Are you ready?" she finally asked, her tone betraying the tension that simmered just below the surface. "Yeah, I think so," Jim replied, though doubt tangled with resolve in his mind. He wondered if he was prepared for what lay ahead. The confrontation with Lily's uncle was not merely a meeting. It served as the culmination of their shared journey, through grief, a journey that would either strengthen them or stake their relationship on shaky ground. Would he offer support? Or would the mantle of familial obligation crush the bond they were trying to forge? As they drove through town, the familiar roads seemed different, twisting into realms of uncertainty instead of comfort. Each turn prompted him to reflect on who he was now, a father relinquishing the need for control and embracing vulnerability. It was a dizzying shift for a man who believed he controlled every narrative in his life, now set to unravel the threads of a family history that had intentionally been left untouched. The brooding mansion loomed ahead, the weight of generations embedded within its stone facade. A part of him wanted to flee, to retreat to the safety of their home where potential conversations about the past were eclipsed by the present's mundane realities. But he felt the flicker of conviction from the night before igniting within him as they parked the car. They could no longer remain bound by chains of silence. They had to confront the complexities of their shared legacy and the role her uncle played in it. As they walked towards the entrance, Jim noticed a shift in Lily's demeanor. The wince that flickered across her face revealed a mixture of determination and dread. She was stepping into the lioness den, and he contemplated the gravity of what they were about to face together. Before he could offer words of comfort, they crossed the threshold, the dark wood of the door heavy behind them. Inside, the air felt thick with unspoken tension, as if it held secrets waiting to break free. Her uncle greeted them, a well-practiced smile veiling the unsettling depths of his gaze. "Jim, Lily, welcome." The way he articulated their names felt almost predatory, and Jim steadied himself against the spectral energy, calling forth the sense of self he'd been developing alongside his daughter. "Thank you for inviting us," Jim managed, though his voice was steadier than he felt. He strategically positioned himself slightly ahead of Lily, attempting to shield her from whatever storm was brewing. The ensuing conversation unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance filled with veiled threats and half-truths. Jim kept his focus on Lily, who, despite her trepidation, stood resolutely beside him, embodying the light he had praised before. Each sentence exchanged with her uncle raked through the remnants of familial bonds, digging into old wounds that never truly healed. "Family should stick together, don't you think?" her uncle said, his eyes narrowing with a calculated gleam. It pierced through the air, a silent challenge laying claim to their shared heritage. Jim clenched his fists, summoning every ounce of courage not to displace the mantle of his newfound role. "And yet, it's important to define what family means for us. Past legacies don't dictate our present," he countered, with a clarity that surprised even him. Lily's hand tightened around his arm, a physical reminder of their shared purpose. She met her uncle's gaze fiercely, drawing strength from within herself, much like Jim had learned to do in the silent exchanges they had shared recently. As the confrontation escalated, Jim felt the ground shift beneath them. It wasn't merely a negotiation on roles or power dynamics, but a fierce reclamation of identity he could now own, alongside Lily. Together, they were shaping their narrative, weaving in pieces of the past yet discarding those that no longer reflected who they were. Even as the shadows of rivalry writhed around them, Jim felt a burgeoning sense of empowerment solidify in his chest. But with the storm raging in full force, he could not yet escape the ominous tether of her uncle's unresolved past, ready to pull the rug from beneath their feet. Little did they know, the ultimate revelation was lurking just beyond the fray, a piece of family history that would challenge everything they had just begun to rebuild. In that moment of profound uncertainty, Jim's breath quickened, realization dawning as he stared at her uncle. "What are you hiding?" It would be the question that would ignite the next confrontation, leading them into depths of familial betrayal they could never have anticipated. Jim's question hung in the air like a dense fog, heavy with implication. The atmosphere shifted, his heartbeat drumming louder against his ribs as he locked eyes with her uncle. The well-practiced smile faltered momentarily, revealing a flash of something darker lurking beneath the surface. Jim knew they had crossed a threshold. The conversation was no longer merely about family ties or shared history. It was about power, secrets, and the truths that threatened to dismantle everything he and Lily had begun to piece together. "Excuse me?" her uncle said, his voice laced with an unsettling calmness that only amplified Jim's unease. The tension in the room intensified, wrapping around Jim and Lily like a snare. Jim took a step closer, refusing to yield to fear. "You heard me. Your position doesn't give you a right to withhold the truth from us." "Not anymore." Lily's grip on his arm tightened, and he felt her pulse race in sync with his own. He gave her a reassuring nod, anchoring himself as they both braced for the storm. They had been caught in the eerie stillness before the tide turned, And Jim felt another wave of determination wash over him, the resolve to protect this fragile bond they were forging. Secrets are a family tradition, Jim, the uncle replied, his smile returning, though it felt more like a mask than the genuine warmth of family. What do you think you have a right to understand? The indignation surged through Jim. Tearing through the layers of composed professionalism he worked so hard to cultivate. We deserve to know the full story. We've started to rebuild our lives, and we won't do it on half-truths or crippling grudges. Lily stepped up beside him, her voice steady but firm. I won't hide from what's real anymore. If there's something you aren't telling us, it's time to come clean. Her uncle's gaze hardened, the air electric with their standoff. In that moment, Jim realized how critical this confrontation was, not just for them, but for Lily's future. He sensed the dichotomy of past and future colliding, and he understood the weight of history pressing down on their efforts to move forward. But what lay beneath her uncle's calm facade? Was it shame, guilt, or something more sinister? The question danced in Jim's mind, clouding his focus and amplifying his anxiety. He needed answers, not just for himself, but for Lily's sake. Very well, her uncle said, his tone having shifted from smug to contemplative. If you insist on digging into the family secrets, you may not like what you uncover. The directness of his words sent a chill racing down Jim's spine. They had prepared to confront layers of denial and forgetfulness, but the implication of revelations and potential shame twisted into a knot of dread. We're not turning back, Jim asserted, voice steady despite the tremors of uncertainty. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. You're not the authority here anymore. With every word, Jim felt his own authority solidifying, revealing a strength he hadn't fully acknowledged before. This moment wasn't just about confronting her uncle. It was about affirming their newfound identity as a family, a reality grounded in openness. Let us hear it, he finished, the challenge echoing in the vast emptiness of the mansion. Lily drew a breath beside him, the weight shared between them. Something shifted in her uncle's gaze as he started to speak. The words flowed like oil from a cracked reservoir, slow and dirty, revealing fractures that could end partnerships or ignite unity. Jim's attention honed in, heart racing, aware that the fabric of their reality was about to shift dramatically. Just as the first thread began to unravel, he felt a deep foreboding. What would emerge from the shadows of the past? Would they be found wanting, or reclaim their narrative again as whole, bold individuals? As the uncle's truths began to spill forth, Jim felt a tumult brewing in his chest. Yet, within that storm lay the seeds of clarity, each revelation closer to binding their emerging family, but also threatening to expose flaws deep enough to sever their ties. The room shrunk around them as Jim readied himself for what would follow. The air crackled as more than just family history lay on the line. It was the very essence of who they were, and who they could become. The revelations were just beginning as the darkness approached, each revelation promising a confrontation of historic grief and emerging defiance. And in the tender spaces filled with trepidation, the light of an unexpected truth began to flicker just out of reach, echoing Jim's question. What were they about to uncover, and could they handle it? The undeniable tension in the room enveloped Jim as he focused on her uncle, whose lips curled into a sinister smirk. In a calculated tone, the uncle began revealing the past, each word a jagged piece of glass slicing through the fabric of their unity. Your mother, Lily's mother, had a life that was shrouded in complications. There are things you don't know, he intoned, letting each syllable hang heavily in the charged atmosphere. Jim felt his pulse quicken as the implications loomed larger. Every ambiguous reference felt like condensation gathering on a window, signaling an impending storm inside him. This was more than just family secrets. It held the potential to reshape their understanding of love, loyalty, and the foundations they stood upon. And you think that's enough to control us? Jim challenged, his voice rising in defiance. He realized that his question was less about her uncle's authority, and more about his own burgeoning understanding of where he fit in this fractured lineage. He wasn't merely a passive observer. He had claimed agency, and that realization came with its own heavy price. Lily squeezed Jim's arm, an anchor of grounding support amid the chaos. Her eyes, filled with apprehension, also sparked with an invitation for strength. Together, They relentlessly stood against the impending deluge of truth. Do you really want to hear it, Jim? Her uncle shot back, as if gauging their mettle. What if these truths tear you apart rather than bring you closer? Jim felt the weight of the question sink into his core, resonating within the very essence of his identity. He had spent so long cultivating a professional persona that exuded confidence, but the reality of facing a family legacy with such volatility made him acutely aware of the fragility that underpinned his efforts. Yet he also realized that true growth came when one confronted their demons, not when they turned away from potential pain. We're not afraid, Jim declared, forcing the resolve into every word. The moment echoed beyond the walls of the mansion, a proclamation of newfound strength and defiance against a legacy that had once thrived on secrecy. Very well, her uncle replied, the veneer of calm slipping. Let us begin with the biggest secret, your mother's true lineage. The declaration struck Jim like a thunderbolt. He had always known there was something elusive about Lily's past, something that seemed to hover just outside the periphery of their blueprints for the future. But to hear her uncle confirm it, cloaked in condescension, sent Jim's mind spiraling. This was it, the catalyst he had feared yet anticipated. Why now? Why reveal this? Jim's anger rose, galvanizing him with an urgency that compelled him to confront not only her uncle, but the established notions of loyalty that had kept his voice muted in the past. Because there's strength in the truth, and understanding your legacy makes you who you are. Just like it shaped me, her uncle shot back, his mask of calm cracking further under the intensity of their exchange. Each word exchanged in that room held the power to fracture or fortify the tenuous threads binding them as a family. As for Jim, he recognized that this was an opportunity to own his place not as a passive participant in someone else's narrative, but as a sculptor of their own history. The darkness that loomed ahead was not just an older family's burden, but a challenge to define their future. Suddenly the air shifted. Jim and Lily locked eyes, a shared commitment coursing through them. This wasn't merely about ancient secrets. It was a reclamation of their identities. Enough games. If we're going to move forward, we need the truth about everything. Not just your version, Jim insisted, his voice firm, embodying a precursor to the accountability they sought from the unraveling narrative. As her uncle hesitated, Jim could sense the gravity of this moment. This was not simply about unveiling family secrets, but about confronting their own truths and embracing the complexity of their shared existence. What lay beneath the surface was a murky depth not easily traversed, but they were prepared to navigate it. But before her uncle could respond, an unexpected interruption cut through the tension, the telltale chime of a message alerting Lily's phone. She glanced down, her expression shifting from apprehension to disbelief as she read the screen. Jim's heart raced again as he watched her face transform. What new revelation could possibly arise now? In that moment, as the shadows of the past loomed larger, an invisible fissure opened beneath them. The stakes had just climbed higher, and he wondered, would this unravel the newfound strength they had begun to build? Or would it provide the insight needed to confront their history once and for all? What is it? He urged, anxiety choking the air even further. The impending answer threatened to push them into a chasm they were unprepared for, but retreat was no longer an option. Lily's hand shook slightly as she lowered the phone. Jim's heart raced, the anticipation of truth slicing through the tension. It's a message from my sister, she finally breathed out, her voice barely a whisper. The air between them thickened, and Jim felt a fusion of concern and curiosity swirling within him. He moved closer, his instincts urging him to remain an unwavering pillar of support. What does it say? He pressed gently, knowing that the unknown was often far more powerful than the revelations themselves. Just read it, Lily replied, handing him the phone with trembling hands. Jim hesitated before his fingers hovered over the screen, the glow illuminating both their faces. The content struck him like an unrelenting wave. The text revealed an anguished plea from Lily's sister, confessing secrets about their mother that layered the narrative with betrayal. It wasn't just the drama of hidden lineage. It detailed a business venture gone wrong, the fallout of which had torn their family asunder. This revelation sent tremors through Jim's resolve. More questions surged forward, demanding clarity. What was the extent of the deception? What had this family built upon a foundation of lies? Why would she send this now? Jim murmured as he looked back at Lily, searching for answers in her eyes. The combination of emotions that danced there, despair, anger, and a flicker of resilience, spurred a longing within him. He had long ago learned that vulnerability could either shatter or fortify a person, but the stakes had never felt this high. I don't know, Lily said, her voice trembling, the weight of the world suddenly cast upon her shoulders. But I need to talk to her. We need to confront this together. The urgency in her tone ignited a fire that had been simmering within Jim. He realized the confrontation with her uncle was only the beginning, but now, they also had to navigate this new fissure, the tension not just between past generations, but the rift it could create in the present. Could they truly face all this together? He had committed to being part of her journey. He had to root for her as they both unraveled the truth, step by step. We will confront your sister and your uncle, he declared with newfound determination, visualizing the path ahead. The fear didn't fade, but it morphed into a call to action. We won't let these revelations divide us. If anything, we'll let them bring clarity. Lily nodded, her gaze hardening. Jim could see that she was coming into her own strength, unearthing an identity he had since buried beneath her layers of uncertainty. He admired that spark. They were venturing beyond familial confines and forging a new direction of their own. The two turned back to her uncle, who was looming like a predator ready to pounce. Jim steeled himself, holding on to the resolve blossoming inside him. It's time for all the truths, he demanded, voice unwavering. In doing so, he felt a renaissance of confidence. This was their life, their story. But just as they braced for a confrontation, her uncle laughed, an unsettling sound that clawed at Jim's simmering resolve. And you think you can untangle this mess? The truth is not just a knife's edge, it's a labyrinth. You may find yourselves lost in it. Jim's stomach twisted. The real question is, will you help us navigate it? He shot back, challenging the man who had long attempted to wield control. This moment was not about acquiescing to fear or manipulation. It was a test of will. As her uncle's expression shifted from amusement to irritation, Jim felt an electric pulse of defiance igniting in the pit of his stomach. The stakes were rising, the broken family dynamics unfurling before them like a tangled thread that begged to be unraveled. They were faced not only with the promise of truth, but the heaviness of choices that would shape their existence and redefine their bond. What will you do now? Jim thought, apprehensively reading the battle in Lily's eyes as she clenched her fist in determination. Just then, the door creaked open. The unexpected visitor stepped. Inside, their presence an earthquake that sent shocking ripples through the atmosphere. Jim's pulse quickened again. Who was this newcomer? Was this person a part of the puzzle, or another layer of chaos waiting to unfurl? As uncertainty gripped him anew, he realized that this confrontation was just the beginning. What would be revealed next? Would they emerge as a stronger unit, or would the truth scramble everything they had built so far? The newcomer, a tall figure with an air of intimidation, paused at the threshold, their presence demanding attention. Jim's mind raced with possibilities. Who were they? Another long-lost relative? A friend of Lily's sister? Or perhaps someone sent to stoke the fires of conflict even further? Lily's breath caught in her throat at the sight of them. Emily? She gasped, disbelief coloring her tone. This was her sister, the one behind the anguished message. Jim's heart sank at the gravity of the situation. They were now all entangled in this family saga, each person veiled in their own narratives of pain and truth. Lily. Emily's voice was calm, almost too calm for the storm brewing between them. She stepped inside, tension crackling in the air, and Jim's instincts screamed that this confrontation would not be easily resolved. Looking between the sisters, Jim felt the urgency swell. He had no choice but to act as a mediator, an anchor amidst the chaos. What is going on? Lily demanded, her voice resolute but trembling at the edges. You sent that text, so why are we just standing here? I came because I wanted to explain, Emily said. But the look on her face suggested she was still weighing her words. Jim's pulse quickened as he sensed the walls between them were as thick as the ones they needed to tear down. Lily took a step forward. You need to be honest with me. You started this, so let us finish it. The fierceness in her tone both surprised and impressed Jim. It was as though the weight of the family's history had ignited a fire within her that was impossible to extinguish. Emily shifted uneasily but finally spoke, placating the storm. Mom, didn't he just hide our past? She was trying to protect us? By lying? Lily interrupted, her voice hitting key notes of betrayal. Jim watched as Lily's eyes blazed, a whirlwind of emotion converging in her heart. It was a pivotal moment. Would she cling to anger or embrace the chance to rebuild their bond? Emily met her sister's gaze with a weary determination, weaving through the turmoil. There's so much more to it. What we thought was a business failure, it was a catastrophe. Mom lost everything, and she didn't want us to carry that burden. The atmosphere shifted. Jim felt a pang of empathy for them both, trying desperately to understand the ropes of vulnerability dangling before them. He realized this wasn't merely about confronting Emily, or even her mother. It was about forging a new identity, a new narrative, untainted by past deceptions. Lily, Jim interjected gently, trying to steer them back to the core of their struggle. What do you want from her? What kind of truth are you looking for? Lily paused, grappling with her own thoughts, the ambiguity swirling around her. I want clarity. I need to know what truly happened and why it was kept from me. If we don't face it, we'll keep living these lies that will only create more hurt. The fire within Jim ignited anew. His position as a support turned proactive, igniting a resolve fueled by shared burdens. Then let us face it together. This isn't just Lily's battle. We are allies in this. Emily, you are part of this family too. The words set a ripple through the room, the recognition of shared pain echoing in the silence that followed. Tension simmered at the edges. It made Jim acutely aware of how pivotal this moment might be. In supporting Lily, he was discovering his own capacity for resilience, a soft strength that dawned through adversity, shaping who he was becoming. Are you ready to face Mom? Emily finally asked, her voice steady but apprehensive. The weight of their lineage lay heavy on all their shoulders, but in that pivotal moment, Jim understood they had the opportunity to reclaim their identities from the ruins of deceit. Before Lily could answer, an unexpected noise came from the hall outside, a rattling that shook the foundation of their newfound unity. Jim's heart raced as he looked towards the source, readying himself for whatever chaos lay ahead. What lay beyond that door remained a mystery, but he sensed that the answers might forever alter their concept of family and trust. Would they confront the truth lurking just beyond reach? Or would this depth of struggle unveil new shades of division? Only time would reveal the ultimate challenge before them. The rattling grew louder, echoing through the silence filled with unresolved tension. Jim's instincts took over, compelling him to move. He edged toward the doorway, a physical manifestation of the inner turmoil swirling within him. Was it cowardice that prompted fear, or courage that compelled him forward? He couldn't quite decide. Stay here, he urged, glancing back at Lily and Emily. The sisters stood together, a stark contrast to the storm brewing between them. They looked ready to storm the door if needed, yet still tethered by uncertainty. Jim felt it, their desperation for clarity clashing with the threat of painful truths. He turned the handle, hesitating for just a heartbeat. It was a moment suspended in time, heavy with implications. As the door swung open, revealing a dark hallway flooded with uncertainty, Jim prepared himself for whatever might emerge. In that charged moment, he felt more than just fear. He felt a flicker of hope. Despite the chaos, he was finally stepping up, unfurling the versions of himself he was still getting to know. At the end of the hall, the source of the noise materialized. A small box tumbling down the staircase. It landed with a thud, clattering unsettlingly as it settled against the wall. A trivial object, yet among the avalanche of familial secrets and buried histories that laid before them, it held symbolic weight. What is it? Lily asked warily, trying to peer beyond Jim to examine the fallen box. It had a familiar air, one that conjured vague memories of childhood clutter and long-forgotten days. The curiosity fluttered in her voice, imbued with a mix of anticipation and dread. Jim bent down, still aware that the sisters remained anchored to the moment, unwilling to move unless directed. As he reached for the box, he could feel the heat of unspoken expectations wash over him. With a simple tug, the cardboard gave way, flaps unfolding to reveal a stack of yellowed papers and brittle photographs. A hush fell over the trio as Jim pulled out the first photo. There was their mother, smiling brightly alongside two girls he and Lily barely recognizable in their youthful faces. "What is this?" Emily whispered, taking a hesitant step forward. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for another photo, the light catching her expression and emotion Jim couldn't quite read. "Family pictures." But Jim's voice trailed off as he caught sight of a piece of paper tucked underneath. He lifted it out, a faded business proposal, the details scrawled in a handwriting that mirrored their mother's. A name at the top, an address he had never known, and figures presented in bold lines that seemed to narrate a story of aspirations. "What does it say?" Lily pressed, urgency creeping into her voice. Jim scanned the document, trying to decipher the past that lay in those meticulous figures and outdated plans. Opening a window into a reality he never understood. "It looks like it was a project she considered but never pursued. There are figures here, debts, losses, it's worse than we thought." A collective breath hung in the air, heavy with implications. Jim realized how intricately their mother had woven her web of secrets, potentially to shield them from not just failure, but exposure to broader fears of inadequacy. Feeling the weight of these revelations, a thought struck him. This could redefine everything they thought they knew about their family's origin, and in turn, change the ways they viewed themselves. "This can't be all of it," Emily said, trembling as she took a small step toward Jim, eyes bright with a mix of fear and determination. "If there's more to unearth, we can't ignore it anymore." Jim's heart raced, the potential for discovery igniting a sense of purpose within him. Shadows of doubt began to dissolve. Perhaps this collective endeavor could pull them closer together, not just as sisters, but as allies in unraveling their story. Before he could respond to Emily, Lily's gaze shifted beyond the box, drawing attention back to the echoing hall. What if there's more out there? More secrets? The path forward materialized in fragments. Would they confront their mother together, armed with these revelations, or continue drowning in ambiguity? With urgency charging the moment, Jim looked to the sisters. "We need to decide now. Are we willing to delve deeper, take this confrontation to her? The answers wait on the other side, but so do the risks." The unspoken weight of their devotion to truth hung in the air, stretching taut. The next step brewed perilously close, encapsulating a significant choice that awaited them, one that would define not just their relationships, but their identities moving forward. Would the truth she long concealed strengthen them, or would it splinter what was left of the fragile bonds? The moment held its breath, and they stood at the precipice of revelation, ready to take the leap into the depths of their family's past, uncertain of where it might lead them. Jim's pulse quickened, adrenaline surging through his veins as he weighed the fragile stakes in that pulsating silence. The moment called for bravery, a stepping stone onto a path strewn with uncharted territory, the intricate web of their shared history. This was more than mere curiosity. This was a reckoning. "Let us go further," he said, his voice steadying as his resolve crystallized. He felt the sisters' gazes intensify, reflecting their own need for clarity. This wasn't merely about revealing secrets, but about confronting the shared legacy handed down to them, the invisible weights they had unknowingly carried. "Even if it hurts?" Emily's brows knitted with uncertainty, underscoring the struggles entrenched within her, her fear of being burdened by the truth overshadowing the need for understanding. "Even if it hurts," Jim affirmed, knowing his words softened the cliff's edge of their emerging resolve. Growth often came hand in hand with pain. He began to gather the papers, the photographs whispering stories, pasts threaded with dreams unfulfilled, prompting him to discover what lay behind their mother's carefully curated facade. As he leafed through the collection, another scrap fell to the floor, a letter, addressed in familiar handwriting. Heart pounding, he nudged it closer, feeling its electric potential for revelation. With cautious fingers, he unfolded it, revealing thoughts that mirrored their own, a letter to a potential investor, perhaps the very lifeline their mother had longed for but never grasped. A secret hope buried beneath layers of disappointment. "It talks about an idea she had," Jim murmured, "how she wanted to start a business." Here he pointed to the flourishing descriptions of an innovative venture. Beneath the ambition, however, lay stark warnings about risks, unfathomable challenges that had ultimately stifled this dream as surely as it was conceived. As he read, a sense of kinship with their mother burgeoned within him, a realization forming that she, too, had faced the shadowy grip of fear, often paralyzing in nature. She wanted to, Jim said slowly, allowing the weight of that phrase to sink in, but she didn't think it could work. She didn't believe in herself enough. A clenching sensation tightened around Jim's heart. Her views, the lurking insecurities dispensed through generations, had echoed in their own lives. He traced the implications, how this legacy of doubt could have seeped into them, compelling them to tread lightly in their choices and aspirations. Maybe she thought she was protecting us, Lily murmured, her eyes misty, indicating a simmering understanding starting to form. This moment of connection illuminated in Jim a kernel of hope, perhaps unveiling these hidden truths could forge misunderstandings not just into clarity, but resilience. Or maybe she simply didn't know how to communicate it, he replied softly, reflecting on their own inability to reach beyond walls of silence, fear, and vulnerability. What we're uncovering isn't just her struggle, it's ours too. A moment hung between them, thick with empathy and understanding, yet teeming with personal stakes. If they could untangle this familial narrative, if they could unveil the layers of their feelings, what might they discover about themselves? I'm willing to face her, Emily said, a fierce glint igniting in her eyes. Enough is enough. It's time to confront her. Jim nodded, excitement mingling with apprehension. Each step deeper brought them closer to defining their own narratives, but also threatened to upend everything they understood about the family. But we have to be prepared for anything. If it shakes the ground beneath us, we need to be solid together. As they gathered themselves, the decision weighed heavily, balancing precariously between diving into the unknown and the fear that the truth might unravel them. With the box of memories clutched firmly, Jim felt an awakening stirring. He sensed a developing strength they hadn't realized they possessed. In that moment, the reality began to sharpen. They were not children anymore, shaped by uncertainties, but adults capable of confronting their past. They were prepared to hold those revelations, to face their mother equipped not only with questions, but a desire to heal. With the box of family secrets in hand, they moved closer to the threshold where answers throbbed with anticipation. They would find their mother and unlock the next chapter, whatever it contained. But somewhere deep inside, Jim sensed a pulse of trepidation. If past burdens held the power to fracture, would the knowledge of their mother's hidden ambitions fortify their bonds? Or would the cracks run deeper, threatening to pull them apart at the seams? His heart raced as he led the way toward the door, an intersection of hope and fear, ready to step into an exploration of truth where the real battle for their identities awaited them. Would they rise together, or would this be an unveiling that tore them asunder? As Jim reached for the doorknob, an unsettling thought flickered through his mind. What if unraveling this web exposed more than familial fears? It unearthed suppressed longings he hadn't even recognized within himself. As Jim turned the doorknob, he felt the weight of the moment pressing against him, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. He could feel Lily and Emily standing firmly beside him, their collective resolve a powerful anchor against the fear of the unknown. This was their moment to confront not only their mother, but the legacy of silence and hardship that had shrouded their family for too long. He swung the door open, revealing a sunlit room adorned with faded photos and sentimental trinkets. The air within felt thick with memories, but they were ready. "Mom," he called out, his voice steady yet laced with uncertainty. The figure of their mother, weary yet vibrant, emerged from a corner, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. "What's going on? Why are you all here?" she asked, a spark of worry igniting in her eyes. "Mom, we need to talk," Lily interjected, stepping forward, her voice stronger than Jim had ever heard it. "About everything." The determination in her tone struck Jim as a pivotal shift. She was no longer the unsure girl caught between familial expectations. Instead, she was a young woman ready to step into her truth. Their mother's gaze flickered, reading the tension in the room. "What about?" she asked, feigning ignorance. But Jim could see cracks of vulnerability appearing as her armor wavered. "About the past, about the business, about why you kept things from us," Jim stated, surprising himself with the firm clarity in his words. It felt freeing, liberating even. to express this individuality rooted in the depths of shared experience. The shadows in his mother's eyes deepened. "I thought I was protecting you," she murmured, the weight of her long-held confessions saturating her voice. "I didn't want you to carry the burdens of my mistakes. Mom, every secret just pulls us apart," Lily countered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears but resonating strength. "We don't want your protection. We want honesty. You didn't trust us to handle the truth." Jim felt a tightening in his heart as he watched the exchange unfold. There was an undeniable sense of unity forged in their truths. It was the beginning of a transformation not only in their relationship, but in their individual identities. As each revelation began to unravel, he recognized the value in facing discomfort together. "I buried it all," their mother said, voice trembling as she wiped tears streaking down her face. "The business failures, the debt, we lost everything. When I saw you both flourish, I didn't want to taint your perspectives of what family means. It was easier to pretend things were fine." The emotional air swirled, pulling Jim with it. It was a revelation his own insecurities echoed. The desire to construct an ideal narrative while burying pain deep within. "But those truths won't vanish on their own," he said softly, feeling the rush of understanding shift something within him. "They only hide behind walls, waiting to hurt us. We want to know who we are, as much of ourselves as we can uncover." As their mother processed their words, an inner conflict flickering on her face, Jim could sense the walls again starting to crumble. "You have both seen who I am," she confessed, "and I fear that knowing my failures will push you away. That I might lose you if you see me as less than I claim to be." "It doesn't matter, Mom," Lily cried, stepping closer. "What matters is moving forward for all of us. We can't build a future unless we own our past." In that moment, Jim realized the cohesive strength burgeoning among them. They weren't just confronting the shadows of family history. They were crafting an environment where regrowth could occur, rooted in authenticity and forged through reconciliation. "I'm ready," their mother stated, drawing a steadiness from deep within her. "Ready to share everything, no more lies. If this is the way to mend what's been broken, then I owe it to you both." As they took a seat around their mother's familiar dining table, the atmosphere changed. Each declaration, each piece of honesty sliced through the haze of secrecy. Her mother's dreams once left unfulfilled, the magnitude of the financial collapse, and how grief had shaped their narrative. Together they began to reconstruct the story of their family, no longer bound by fear, but rather empowered by openness. Jim could sense the rising tides of confidence within each of them as they journeyed through this candid discussion, the vulnerability slowly transforming into strength. He had always held onto the reins of control, afraid of exhibiting inadequacy, but as he shared his own uncertainties and his desire to heal, he realized that acknowledgement of vulnerability was the true path to empowerment. He had achieved growth beyond any metric society dictated. It was the connection forged from honesty that molded their futures. As the conversation wound down, Jim looked at Lily and Emily. There was a simmering resolve. They were no longer defined by their past, but were beginning anew. The unity forged through their openness marked a significant transformation. They had accepted not only their mother's imperfections, but their own, embracing the beautiful mess of family life. This chapter closed. Yet another broader one opened, one fueled by authenticity, resilience, and undeniable strength. Jim felt a profound sense of achievement. He stood as a father, no longer shrouded in doubt, but solid in his newfound role. "Thank you both for being brave," their mother said with a smile filled with warmth, breaking a moment of silence as they all gazed at one another, acknowledging the journey they had embarked upon. A bond that had once felt so fragile now pulsed with strength that emanated from shared truths. They had reclaimed their narrative with the courage to face whatever would come next together. It was in this awakening that Jim found himself at the threshold of a vital moment in his life, marked by deep-seated change and recognition of his role within not just a family, but a legacy thriving on trust. In that realization, he felt a pulse that beat of satisfaction pulsing through him. He had achieved not only personal growth, but a reconnection that would empower them all. As they concluded their heartfelt conversation, Jim glanced towards both Lily and Emily, and felt at peace for the first time in years. They were siblings in every sense of the word. bound through everything they had worked to overcome. And in that defining moment, he captured an essence that would echo throughout their lives. Family isn't just a title. It's an ongoing process of understanding, acceptance, support, and love cultivated through authenticity. This was both their triumph, a legacy reshaped, and his realization of what he could accomplish when leaning into the waves of vulnerability instead of retreating from them. To everyone watching, do not miss your chance to transform your own narrative. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Your voice counts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support these powerful stories. Only true fans of personal overcoming understand the impact they can make. Don't wait even one more second.